idea was that it is Veena who is going to perform. Veena is my wife. And she performs pure Kathak, which is an old dance tradition in India. And then I was told that since I am going to be accompanying her, I should share some of my memories and memories of Shri Mataji that I have heard from my mother and Shri Mataji's other brothers and sisters. A bit of a framework of what I am going to tell you. What memories do I recount? And I tried to do that. And then I found it difficult to decide a framework. And then I realized that how do you decide a framework for God? How do you decide a framework for Adi Shakti? Those of us who have some knowledge, little knowledge of physics, know that before everything there was the Big Bang. And that started off everything, the universe, the time, everything. But before the Big Bang, what was there? Nobody knows. Even physicists like Stephen Hawking have been unable to say what existed before Big Bang. So before Big Bang, it was Adi Shakti which existed. Before the beginning of time, that's why she is called Adi Shakti. She existed before time began. And so eventually I decided that I'll allow my thoughts to be guided by her and share whatever she feels I should be sharing with you. I would start off with her parents, who were realized souls. My grandfather, that is Shri Mataji's father, was a lawyer and a renowned lawyer for that. And he was earlier married to a lady from whom he had 5 children. And unfortunately, due to one of the illnesses which were incurable in those days, she passed away. And so there were these 5 young children who needed looking after. And he was also not very old. So people advised him that he should get married. But then the question was, whom does he marry? It was difficult. So my grandmother, Cornelia Bai Salve, that is Shri Mataji's mother, was recommended to him by one of his friends. Now this lady was a graduate in the early 19th century. That's in India, where women were not supposed to study. They were supposed to get married, settle, and grow children and look after the house. So this was a lady who was a graduate, a BA honors in mathematics. And she was also the principal of a school in those days. Known as a very strict disciplinarian. So people used to be afraid of even approaching her. So it was a big challenge for my grandfather to decide to go and approach her and propose to her. And she didn't have parents. Her parents were not alive at that time. But anyway, he gathered courage, and on a road called Mount Road in Nagpur, he, approached her and said that I am so and so, and I would like to talk to you. So she gave him a very stern look and told him, look, I don't talk to strangers on the road. So there's no question of talking to you. So he said, no, I'm not a stranger. I know you. You may not know me. Then he introduced himself. Of course, my grandfather had a very towering personality and very fair, very tall. So she said, okay, I'll give you 5 minutes. Say what you have to say. So he introduced himself. On the road, he tells her his story and says that, look, I'm wanting to get married again. So she said, okay, you have told me what you have to tell me. You have to wait. So she asked him to come to her house the next Sunday. And he went there. And she was there. And she said, I have considered your proposal and I am ready to take it up. That's how the parents met and they got married. Shri Mataji was the second child of my grandmother. The eldest being Mr. N.K.P. Salve, Narendra Kumar Salve, who was also a minister in the government chairman of the Cricket Club of India, all kinds of things that he did. And Shri Mataji was born in the midst of siblings who were intellectually very big, giants in their own capacity. Very good orators later on, who could speak in various languages, but she was the tallest among them. There was no comparison to her even in her childhood. A couple of memories of her childhood which my mother used to tell me. One was when she was hardly 15 or 16. And imagine there are 12 children in the house. And my grandmother, who is a strict disciplinarian, she used to insist on a number of things, that you have to do this, you can't do that, etc., etc. So one day, Shri Mataji decides, and those were the days when the Indian freedom struggle was going on, and Mahatma Gandhi was leading what was called the Satyagraha, that is the insistence on truth, and therefore you agitate for truth to prevail. So one fine day, Shri Mataji called all her siblings, and some of them were older than her. They were from the first wife of my grandfather. And she called all of them, there were 12 of them in all, and she said, please sit down. And she spoke to them for 10 minutes, why they needed to launch a satyagraha against their dictatorial mother. Okay. So, and for about 1 hour, they sat down very quietly. All of them, all 12 of them, led by Shri Mataji. I mean, that's the leadership quality you can see. She's already leading her own brothers and sisters. And then my grandmother realized there is something wrong. The children haven't come for food. So she went out, and there in the hall, they were all sitting there quietly and not speaking a word. So they said, what? She said, what's going on? She said, lunch is served, and what are you people doing here? So then Shri Mataji spoke up, and she said that, we are doing a satyagraha against you. So she was stunned. She was taken aback a little. But then Shri Mataji explained that, we feel that you are too much of a dictator, and that, we find it difficult to listen to you all the time. Her capacity to sort of stand up and say what she felt from her heart, even in the presence of authority, is something that, marked her out even at that age. And then her mother explained to her and the rest of the children that she is strict because she wants them to follow life in a particular way. Eventually, between the mother and the daughter, there was a reconciliation, and then she said, okay, let's go and have lunch. In any case, they were all feeling hungry. So, what I've just narrated is just an instance of her capacity to, take everyone along, guide them, lead them, and their willingness to follow her. So, which was something which was amazing. Though I'm known as Dada in the family, my name is Karunakaran, and I belong to the family of Sathianathan and Salves, and my father was M.A. Sathianathan, my mother was Shantashila Salve before she got married. She was the younger sister of Shri Mataji, and belonged to a family which was well respected, had a great tradition of music and service to the country. My grandfather, Mr. P.K. Salve, was a famous lawyer of Nagpur who had been awarded the title of Rao Sahib by the British. So he gathered courage and went and saw her. Now my grandmother Cornelia Bai Salve was a very tough lady, very tough disciplinarian with very strict, shall we say, Victorian values, and also influenced by the teachings of Gandhiji. So he went and met her, explained to her, and then made a formal proposal that he would like to marry her. So she said, okay, give me a few days, and after a few days when he met her, she said she agreed to marry my grandfather. That brought about a change in my grandfather's life, because she said that, you should now try and serve the country. And over the next 6 years when they had children, NKP Salve being the eldest, Narendra Kumar Salve, and the second one was Shri Mataji. They named her Nirmala Devi. And these were names just that came to her. And my mother was named Shantashila. She was the next after Shri Mataji. And in somewhere around 1929, they shifted to Nagpur. And my grandfather joined the freedom struggle. He gave up all the clothes that he used to wear and started wearing khadi. My grandmother, in any case, had started wearing khadi much before that. And she had started participating in various activities of Mahatma Gandhi. Now, the family was large, obviously, and there were these 5 children from the previous wife and 7 children that they, Cornelia Bai and P.K. Salve had. And so it was a huge family. Looking after that family was quite a job. And all these children that they had, the 7 children, were special. They had all special qualities and gifts that they had received. Of course, she did realize that Nirmala Devi, or Nirutai as she was called in the family, was definitely someone who was different. And when she would start talking about her children, she would say, NKP Salve was called Polian. So he would say that Polian is like this, Nirmala is like this, so she would go on and say that these kids really give me a tough time. When roughly these children grew up, they realized that their mother is a tough disciplinarian and didn't always like the discipline that she imposed on them. Whether it was for studying, or whether it was for being on time, or whether it was for cleanliness or whatever. She was very, very strict about the way her children behaved. A lot of the values that they imbibed were from their mother. And of course their father was a huge inspiration behind all the good, shall we say, work that was done by their children. And so as they were growing up, the brothers and sisters also realized that Shri Mataji had certain leadership quality. And so she went and found out, and they are all sitting there in the hall. And so then my aunt, or Shri Mataji, piped up and said that she wanted to know what all of you are doing. So she said that we are all doing satyagraha, and so she wanted to know the reason. So she told her very bluntly that it's against you. Now imagine telling your own mother, and who is known as a strict disciplinarian, that look, we are doing satyagraha against you, was quite a job. So then of course her mother of course pacified her and told her that it's all for your own good and things like that, and I'm not strict just because I want to be strict, but because I feel that all of you should grow into good citizens and good people who will be able to contribute to the society. Eventually everybody understood, and then she said, okay, enough is enough, now come along and have lunch. Obviously everybody was waiting for that signal, and then Shri Mataji also said, okay, let's go and have lunch. So the whole jing bang lot went off and had lunch. But it only shows that she had this deep sense of what is just and what should be acceptable, even at a very young age. And the capacity to mobilize and organize people was something that she had at a very young age. She was also never afraid of, shall we say, doing things which were tough on herself. For example, she was extremely fond of walking. And my mother remembers an instance where, they went across to school. Both of them used to go to the same school. And despite the fact that, their father had a big car which would fetch them and take them to school, on that particular day the driver didn't turn up. And she said, oh, this is a good opportunity, let's walk back home. My mother didn't like walking. She never liked walking. Though later on when she got married and went to Sevagram and Gandhiji's ashram, she used to do a lot of walking. But Shri Mataji always liked walking. She could walk, and without any strain or stress, she could really walk quite a lot. And we saw that later on also in later life, when she would never get tired and say that, oh, now I'm tired and I'm going to sit down and this thing, except very much later. So especially when she was doing the work of Sahaja Yoga, we have seen her literally, working day and night and keeping up that momentum. So she told my mother that, okay, we are going to walk, and then it started raining. So my mother said, look, it started raining, so let's not walk in the rain. Shri Mataji said, nothing doing, you are coming with me. So both of them picked up their slippers and started walking. So my mother said, look, he's driving down this way, and they started waving. But Shri Mataji said, no, don't wave at him, let's walk down. So despite the fact that there was this car coming, going to pick them up at the school, she herself walked, and she made my mother also walk. So I mean, she persuaded my mother that okay, now we are going to walk down to home. Of course, they were both drenched badly. This was when she was very small, I think she was just about 8 or 9 or 10 years old. There was a difference of roughly about a year and a half between my mother and Shri Mataji. And of course, my grandmother got very angry. She said, what is this? Why have you got wet? Because you will fall sick. But anyway, that's another instance which, which my mother remembered, that even from childhood, she was ready to, face a lot of physical hardship and not do it, saying that, oh, I am facing this hardship, but do it willingly and do it happily. And in fact, to a certain extent, she enjoyed it, that, she was able to withstand that. As they grew up, the family got deeper into the freedom struggle. And among the siblings, I think Shri Mataji was the only one who actually got involved in the freedom struggle and the Quit India movement of 1942. And at that period, when my grandfather was already in jail because of his joining the freedom struggle, she also disappeared for some time because she had gone underground to work for the Congress leaders, and they used to work as volunteers, distributing information, distributing pamphlets and things like that. Eventually she was arrested by the police, and there was a chance that she would get tortured perhaps because they wanted information. By God's grace, and perhaps because that was not supposed to be, there was a police officer, a very senior police officer, who knew my grandfather, and when the police brought to him the paper saying that Miss Nirmala Salve has been arrested, so he said, where is she? So he went across to the police station where she was being held and just explained to her that, look, your father is doing enough for the country. There is a family which is there outside. You need to look after that family. Go and help your mother to look after that family. Don't do this. And in fact, my grandmother also was prevented from doing further, agitation, because again this gentleman who was known to the family, once while she was addressing a public meeting which was prohibited at that time, went and told her that, look, your children need you at home and your husband is already doing enough, so please, I request you that you please go home. So in a way, these people, so when we say that, there was no, shall we say, humanity shown to these freedom fighters, that's not very true. There were people who were, very, very considerate and showed a lot of human values in treating these people. So over a period of time, then of course India got independence. My grandfather became a member of what was called the Constituent Assembly and helped formulate the constitution. And Shri Mataji had shifted to Delhi, though she was studying for medicine also at the same time. At this time also another incident took place, which is this, that my uncle, Mr. N.K.P. Salve, who had done his studies from Lucknow, became friends with a gentleman called Sir C.P. Srivastava. Incidentally, he started calling Mr. Srivastava Sir C.P. much before he was knighted, because at that point in time there was a gentleman called Sir C.P. Iyengar. He was a highly respected South Indian gentleman, and so as a takeoff on that, he started calling him Sir C.P. Now Sir C.P. And he was known in the family as Sir C.P. My mother called him Sir C.P. Everybody in the family called him Sir C.P. as a result. There was a special selection for the Indian Civil Services, which was later on renamed as Indian Administrative Service, because a lot of Indian civil service officers left India at the time of independence and went away to their motherland. So in that special selection, he topped the selection and got selected. He was highly regarded as a bureaucrat, known for his honesty, known for his intellect, and for his ability to do things very quickly because of the sincerity with which he did all his work. He was regarded as a professional, as somebody who could be trusted to deliver, and also for the way he did the work, because he was known to speak very well and not offend people while doing the work, because civil servants can be also very egoistic. But that I never saw in Sir CP. In fact, to be honest, Sir CP and NKP Salve were two people who inspired me in my own professional life. Sir CP inspired me to join the civil service. I would not have joined perhaps but for Sir CP, and of course my father, who served the country very selflessly all through his life. And he also inspired me to be an honest civil servant. And that, the best thing to do for your country is to serve with complete honesty and not allow dishonesty to spread in the domain that you control. Corruption was something that was absolutely anathema to him. The other person who inspired, of course, was his close friend, NKP Salve. Both were intellectual giants. And it was always a pleasure to be in their company. Even the jokes that they used to share with each other, or the wit that they showed, was of an amazing standard. NKP inspired me to learn language and speak very clearly. He was an excellent orator and a professional par excellence. He had such a grasp of facts, and he could remember so many facts that made him one of the topmost tax practitioners of the country. These were two people who actually had played a major influence in my life and being what I am today. Shri Mataji also always inspired all of us, and she was also an aunt to us. So that's something that never changed. Even after she was Mataji to thousands of Sahaja Yogis across the globe, she was always the Mausi that we had and we could go to, and she would always help us out with various things. And it would be difficult to enumerate all those things that she did for all of us. And it was not just me. There were many more nephews and nieces and brothers and sisters and everybody that she helped. And when we got married, I and Veena got married, so I went across. She was not able to come for the marriage because she was at Ganpatipuri at that time. But then she said, okay, whenever you're free from your marriage and all the ceremonies that follow thereafter. And then I told her, I said, I'm going to Goa after that. So she said, after you finish your visit to Goa, come and see me at Aurangabad. So we went and saw her. One very interesting thing was that she always said that I'm a realized soul for me. And then when she met Veena, she just looked at her and she said in Marathi, Dada hi tar pa raha hai, which means that she is a realized soul. And this is despite the fact that she knew that we were not practicing Sahaja Yogis. So that was not necessary for her. What she wanted to communicate was that, look, this is something that you have, nurture it. She didn't say it directly, she meant that. And that was something with the family that she always had. She never forced anyone. She could have, given her position in the family, she could have said, look, you need to join Sahaja Yoga. But she never did that. But that did not reduce her love or affection for any of the family members. That was always there. So it was amazing growing up in that kind of love and affection. And so these two people, whether it was Shri Mataji or Sir CP, we always looked forward to it. It was always a pleasure meeting them, whether it was at Pratishthan or Ganpati. I encouraged my wife to perform at Ganpati Puja on a regular basis. And whether it was with my mother that we went there, or on the first occasion I think my mother was present, and later occasions when we went independently, she would always appreciate. And Veena, who performs Kathak, always felt elevated whenever she performed in Shri Mataji's presence. She would say that the atmosphere is somehow electrified, energized. And I have seen her perform at different places. I can say this very clearly, that whenever I saw her perform among Sahaja Yogis or in the presence of specifically Shri Mataji, her performance was of a different level. And you could see that she is completely lost in her dance and doing something where she is not aware that there's an audience in front of her or anything, but she is just dancing. And that was really amazing. And there were occasions when, and we would always go with our children. So Shri Mataji grew very fond of both Ambarish and Avnish. And, she would shower her love and affection on them. And especially on my elder son, who used to call her Goriyaji, which means fair grandmother. So that was something that always amused her. And she would say, "Oh, kahan hai? Where is he?" Whenever we went and saw her. A very loving person is what I definitely remember. All these sisters used to cook very good food and were very fond of good food. Of course, the brothers also were very fond of good food. And so she always insisted that we have our food properly and that the best things should be made. And so whenever we went to her house or even for the pujas and things that we used to be there sometimes, she would say, and she would have, she's looking after so many things, hundreds of people coming to her with various issues and problems, and she's solving them. But in between she would ask, "Dada, tu jevla ki nahi?" That have you had your food or not? Otherwise she would tell somebody, "Gyunza dogana," that you take both of them, see that they eat properly, and then come and tell me. I mean, that kind of attention to, shall we say, the comfort of each and every person who came to her was amazing. It's not easy to do that, because when you are receiving so much of adulation, so much of respect, and you are being worshipped literally as God, it's very easy to sort of lose track of these things and say that, okay, I'm now busy. No, even in all that, she would have this concern that, okay, I have invited them, so whether they have eaten properly or not, and that. She was a great hostess. And I remember she would tell us, and she had a great sense of humor, by the way. I mean, an amazing sense of humor. And whenever she narrated incidents, and especially she would take off very often on Sir CP and what things he would do, because Sir CP was a rather formal person. And Shri Mataji could, become very, very informal when she was in the family. And so she would narrate the hilarious incidents that used to take place in their life, especially when they would be entertaining formally. And she would, literally have us in splits over what all things, she had to go through along with Sir CP. So I think an amazing personality who, inspired all of us. And also that we at some point in time we started realizing that while she is our aunt, and and all our aunts and uncles were very strong and self-willed people, self-made people. Of course they had their father's genes and mother's genes, but these were people who also put in a lot of effort into becoming what they were. And but we realized that yes, despite being from a galaxy of people who are special or who are gifted, she was doing something which was very, very difficult to do, and that is to bring people onto a level which is of a very high spiritual shall we say quality, and changing the lives of people. And we have literally seen her changing thousands and thousands of lives across the globe. And the kind of shall we say devotion that I have seen among Sahaja Yogis is amazing. It's very difficult, and so we realize that this is a person who is from our family but has achieved something different and is at a different level. And that was something which was always a very humbling experience. And despite that, her being able to sort of take care of all of us and be the aunt also at the same time. I mean, we used to find it amazing as to how does she manage to do that. And the kind of energy that she would have, I mean, she would come back from somewhere at about 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock in the night, get up in the morning and be as fresh as anything else. and then say, okay, now today I want to do this and today I want to do that. I still remember she used to come to, we grew up in a place called Wardha, which was a very small town at that time. And my mother used to teach music in a college there. She used to organize a competition for school-going students. And that was on her father's, shall we say, death anniversary on the 17th of February. And invariably Shri Mataji would be there, because she felt that this was something which was very good. And it was a small place, not a very big place. But just because the students were performing, she would come and spend the whole day. The competition used to go on for the entire day. And she would be there sitting along with all of us, listening to the children sing, and then she would also sometimes give the prizes away, etc. Not something which is very big. It's a small, gathering of school children and college children and performing music in front of her and the other judges. So, her capacity to sort of, mingle with different levels of people, whether they were school children, whether they were very poor or they are not that rich, at the same time being able to manage people who are extremely rich also. So these are qualities which are not common, they are unusual.
Dada, I'm going to ask you, back in time now, so Pika Salve and Susipi meet, they're friends, and then Susipi is introduced into your family.
Okay.
So fate has decreed that Susipi is coming into your family. Can you describe the early encounters between Susipi and Shri Mataji and how they came to be married?
What I remember is from what my mother told me, and that my aunt was at that time doing her medicine, and Sir CP had been selected for the civil service, and that he was wanting to get married, and my grandfather, who was a very liberal person, and he decided that he wanted to marry my aunt, that is Shri Mataji. So now they didn't know how to sort of take up this subject. But my aunt knew my grandfather very well, and her mother also very well. And she knew that there were people who were very, very, shall we say, open-minded about all these issues. Please remember, this is somewhere around 1946 or 47, when it was almost taboo for a person to marry outside his caste, leave alone a different religion, a different state from where you are hailing. But my grandparents took it very well, and when Shri Mataji told him that you should talk to them directly, and so they said that okay, this is something which is good and you have our blessings. And they were also very impressed with Sir CP as a person, as a young, shall we say, promising young man who had shown a very high caliber of intellect. And of course my uncle recommended him very highly. He said that this will be a very good match for Nirutai, which is what she was called at home. And so this marriage then eventually took place. And in the initial years it was a tough job, because she got married into a Kayast family who used to have all kinds of restrictions on their daughters-in-law. So she managed that, and my mother used to tell me that she not only changed herself to a large extent to be able to first get assimilated into her family, which was the Srivastava family, but also that whenever, because in those days sometimes the postings that Sir CP had were in the districts, and so life was not easy in those districts, and some of these were newly formed districts, etc., etc. So she would go with Sir CP and be with him even in those districts. Sometimes she had to leave her children, which is Kalpana and Sadhana, with her grandfather and her aunts, so that she could be with her husband, and because there weren't proper arrangements for them to be staying there. So that's something that she adjusted to very quickly. She adjusted to married life very quickly, and despite the ambitions that she had about becoming a doctor, she became Mrs. C.B. Srivastava, and a mother to two wonderful sisters that I have.
you mentioned that during these travels and times that you spent much time with Kalpana and Sadhana. In a way, that became your toy thing. Can you explain that?
Yeah, okay. So, I mean, that's something that, they were staying with my grandfather, and my mother was also there, and she used to keep going because we were staying at Sevagram at that point in time. And she would keep going there. And for them, I was like a toy. So they used to be very amused, and they would want, to talk to me. And I used to at that point in time speak only Malayalam, because we had spent about 2 years in Kerala with my father and picked up only Malayalam. Now Malayalam is a difficult language to understand. So I would keep talking to them in Malayalam, and they used to, every time I would say something, they would run to my mother and say, "You see, Dada said this, what does it mean?" So I was like something which which was like a doll or something for them, and they were so fond of me, and that love and affection has continued even today. Both Kalpana Didi and Sadhana Didi have showered us with a lot of love and affection, and have been very affectionate towards our children and towards Veena also.
Being fate has blessed you to be born into this divine family, what can you share with us about the privilege and the honour to be in this family? What was it like for you as growing up in that family?
I mean, it would be cliche to say that it was a great privilege to be in that family. And I mean, some of those moments are memories that will remain permanently etched, because things that we picked up. And let me tell you this, that being in that family with all these people, Shri Mataji, Sir CP, NKP Salve and others, you always learned something. That was one thing which was there. It was a perpetual learning, because there was so much to be learned from them, and very little things that we picked up unknowingly. In fact, it was not something that was taught to us that okay, you are supposed to do this like this. No, you just picked it up, and it was that atmosphere which enabled you to learn a lot of things and become a better person. And not that we were not naughty, we were as naughty as any boys of that age would have been. And my younger brother was known as a very naughty youngster. But all of us eventually turned out to be very good professionals. And my younger brother is a leading lawyer at Nagpur today. And it was these people that we grew up with. And at the same time, they never sort of made us feel that you are going to enjoy some special privileges. No. We were allowed to grow up very normally, but we imbibed values. And those were values which were there for us to see and learn from, without actually realizing it at that time.
As you later came to realise Shri Mataji's more divine nature, and many people have a very formal view of someone who's of a divine nature, very strict, very formal. But in your experience, you found that Shri Mataji's nature and her personality was wide-ranging and couldn't be restricted by some more formal definition. So what can you share us about her personality and her nature?
It'll take me hours to describe that, very honestly. But
we have hours, sir.
No, yeah, that I understand. You see, the thing that one realizes is that while she was divinity herself for her devotees and Sahaja Yogis and a lot of people outside Sahaja Yoga also, in the family we experienced a person who was very warm, who could laugh easily, and I don't know, have you met Baba Mama? But Baba Mama was one person who could continue to crack jokes endlessly. And so under his, shall we say, tutelage, the nephews, all of us who grew up under his this thing, and he was the closest to all of us because he was the youngest. So in fact, there is a cousin of ours who was older than Baba Mama, because it was a huge family, as I told you. And so Baba Mama was one person who could always crack jokes, and Shri Mataji always enjoyed a good laugh. And sometimes she herself would remember, you know, incidents from their past and tell us that, you know, this is what Indu did. Indu Mausi was the third youngest sister in the family. And, you know, this is what Baba did, and this is what Napoleon did, etc., etc. So, I mean, she could keep us entertained for hours together. And then, of course, the other thing was her love for music. The entire family, the Salve family, had this tremendous, deep love for music. And in fact, when I was getting married, my mother said only one thing. That I'm going to, you know, she said, what kind of girl do we look for? So I said only one thing, she must like and understand music. So that's how Veena came into my life, because she was very keen that, okay, I'm going to look for a girl who understands music and, you know, is a musician herself. Shri Mataji had this great, shall we say, understanding of music. And though she had no formal education in music, it was my mother who had a formal education. She did her master's and then she did her PhD also in music. But she knew the ragas, she knew what was being sung, and she would be touched when the music touched her. If it was divine, of a divine nature, then she would immediately, you know, she would sometimes have tears in her eyes. That's something I have personally seen. And this is something that I had seen in all these brothers and sisters. And when they would get together, oh my God, it was a racket. Because they knew each other's, shall we say, follies, but they also knew each other's good points and strengths and all that. And who would sing what song? It was almost, you know, something that they would say, okay, then she would say, okay, now Baba Sahib, you must sing this. Okay, or she would tell my mother, Shanta, sing this song and sing this thing, rag and whatever. So her love for music was something which was also another thing, and which she, I think, she brought it in a very big way into Sahaja Yoga also.
Shri Mataji describes a time when, after her children were married, that her formal mission to start Sahaja Yoga began. So there was a change in her life, a change in face in her life. So at that point, when she moved from being purely devoted to the family into her spiritual mission, how was that like for the family, and how did you perceive that change in her life?
Very honestly, even after she moved into, you know, devoting her entire time and life to Sahaja Yoga, I don't think as a family person she changed. She still, you know, found time to look after whatever needs were there. I still remember I lost my father sometime in 1986, and at that time my mother was fairly, shall we say, devastated. And by that time her daughters were married and they themselves had their own children also. But she took off time to, you know, spend time with, she called my mother across and she said that you come and spend time with me. And I think that had a certain, shall we say, healing power, which helped my mother to become strong again. She was a very strong person even otherwise, but this sort of helped her. So honestly, despite the fact that she had moved over to a different level, as a person, as a family being, as a family person, she found the time, she still remained the same to all of us. And so which was amazing, because I have attended these pujas, I have attended these, you know, functions of hers, and also, you know, seen how she has been conducting them, attended some of the sessions that she addressed, and you know, it was amazing the way she could explain things which were difficult to understand to a person who essentially grows up with the logic of science and says that, okay, this is the cause, this is the action, and then tries to link everything accordingly in a physical world. So it was amazing to see her explaining various things, and you know, that was another experience which was there, which I think came about after she sort of devoted herself full time to different things at that point in time now. You know, it was difficult to comprehend as to how she finds the time to meditate and understand these things and also read about them, to be able to explain it in a very simple language. One difference between Sir CP and Shri Mataji was, Sir CP used to use language which was very sophisticated. It was very articulate, but his language was formal. Shri Mataji's language was your and my language. She was communicating with common people, with common human beings, and she wanted to convert them. So she would use very simple language, and that was one thing that continued throughout. She sort of and that was actually the language that she used with us also. So I mean, that was also very amazing as to how she would be sort of sitting down with all of us, sharing jokes and anecdotes and things like that, and using that language, and then get on to the stage as Shri Mataji, use that language to explain something which was very, very different, which was divine. So those things were some things which were very distinct, clearly visible as she got more and more deep into.
Dada, you spoke of how Shri Mataji maintained her family persona and her dedication to all of you. It must have been very difficult to be in that family and seeing her as your aunt and the centre of the family, and at the same time start to get a perception of her other aspect, or other more divine nature. And Shri Mataji speaks about how difficult it is for those close to her to see that other more divine aspect of her personality. Can you describe how you came to your own realization about the other aspect of her being, her divine aspect?
Yeah, I think you are very right in saying that it's difficult for a person related to her through blood relations and things like that to perceive her as somebody who is divine, or God herself. And in fact, it was also difficult because I did my physics, masters in physics, and when you do that, your logical side, your side which says that okay, for everything, every action there has to be a cause, and for every action there has to be a reaction, etc., etc. Now here was something which didn't have that kind of logic built into it. So it was difficult to comprehend as to what is it that she's doing. But when you saw the results, you suddenly realized that that cause and action doesn't work here. It's different. And the way she would relate to literally thousands of individuals. And as I said, I attended some of the pujas and some of the shall we say, the ceremonies that used to take place. And that was something which was very difficult to comprehend on a, shall we say, a very, very logical level. And there would be occasions where, within the family, we used to wonder whether, this is something which is the way it has to be perceived, or are we not able to perceive it in the right way. So, that used to be something which was always there. Because for us, she was also Nirmala Mausi, and that perception was very strong. And so, for say my brother or my sisters and my other cousins and others, it was difficult to feel that this is somebody who is very different. But I'll tell you something else. My younger sister had the Down syndrome, and so she would be considered, shall we say, mentally retarded. Shri Mataji never considered her that. And my younger sister had a devotion for her which was amazing. She had a photograph of hers with her always. And still that photograph that she had, we have kept it with her. It is with us. And so we realized that, at some different level, she relates. And my younger sister always related to her as somebody who was, almost divine. So that was something which was a revelation to us. And so she had that photograph of her. She would, sort of sit down in front of that photograph, and be very different. So that's something that we had witnessed. But for all of us, the rest of us, it used to be a bit of a challenge to accept that she is divine, and she is somebody very, very different. Of course, there were moments when we, all of us, I think, would have experienced, something which was different happening to us also. Whether it was in terms of being attending the music concerts that she used to organize, the various, shall we say, occasions that she used to organize. I mean, she was fond of all these occasions when all the entire family would get together. Whether it was the marriage ceremonies of her, shall we say, grandchildren, even her daughters. I mean, we still remember that we would go across, and she would have this huge marriage ceremony, and where the entire family would come in. I think one of the things that she had also, which I should definitely mention, is that she was very gregarious. I don't know whether that's the right term to use for her, but she liked people to be around her, and she would want all the people to be around her and be with her. And as I said, she was very hospitable also, so she definitely had these qualities, which was something that my mother also had. And so I still remember that Christmas time was one time when my mother would insist that I want all my relatives to come. And there used to be occasions that when as in a large family, that you would have some differences that would occur over the period, and we would say, why are we calling so and so? She would say, no, it's Christmas time. Everyone has to come. We would sing hymns, and we would then get into music in a serious way. And those were some of the hymns that Shri Mataji liked tremendously. And so once I remember for Christmas, when she happened to be, this is much before she joined Sahaja Yoga, to be with us for Christmas. And she made my mother sing all the hymns that they used to sing for Christmas when they were children. And there is a hymn book that they used to refer to. And she remembered most of the songs by heart. So that was something which was very, very, amazing. And so this fondness for music, this fondness for getting people together, and and trying to create joy and happiness around. So that was common with what she was doing. She was spreading joy and happiness amongst common men who had all kinds of issues, all kinds of problems in life, and were struggling with various things. I think that's something that will be very difficult to replicate now.
It's strange. You also spoke about at the early stages of her mission, the support that she leaned upon from CCP at the early days of Sahaja Yoga, and how he was a great visionary for her mission. What can you share about those early times in CCP's relationship with Shri Mataji and Sahaja Yoga?
So CP actually, sort of was very supportive of what she was doing. And he realized, as he once told me, I once visited him in London, and we spent some time together alone, having dinner and breakfast together and things like that. And so he told me, Dada, I realized that what she was doing was something very different. Initially, I perhaps didn't understand or comprehend it fully. But when I realized what she's doing, then I said, this is divine work, and she should continue to do it. And he told me how she once, picked up 2 drug addicts in a park in London and brought them home and gave them food and made them sleep in her house. So he said, what's this going on? But then he realized that she's trying to transform them, she's trying to change them. And I think throughout his life he supported her with whatever she was doing. And especially towards the end of her life, I saw that he used to literally sort of mother her and look after her personal needs. Because what he felt is that what he's doing is just to give back a fraction of what she had given him. And so he used to always say that, we used to say that, I mean, it's very difficult to see somebody like you doing all this. Because we all know him as the Secretary General of International Maritime Organization, and the kind of pioneering work that he did in the maritime sector. I happen to be in the logistics sector, so I know what he did and what he contributed. And it was amazing to see him looking after her and, you know, being with her always, all the time. And it was something that, you know, he did out of love that he felt for her. And so I think he did play a major role in, you know, sort of seeing that, you know, Sahaja Yoga and the work that she was doing in Sahaja Yoga actually grew.
I've also seen that relationship, and the way I would describe it is one of devotion and love between both of them, Sir CP for Shri Mataji and also Shri Mataji for Sir CP. What can you share about your experiences of the love they have for one another?
I mean, that used to be on different levels. One was the hilarious one, where she would tell about all his, shall we say, you know, say things like, you know, so CP was one person who always liked to be on time. And for Shri Mataji, time was something which flowed and just passed. You know, she was not worried about, you know, what's happening to the time. So he would, I mean, I saw some of that in my own mother also, so I could understand. I used to get quite worried, you know, when we were going somewhere or catching a train or whatever. And there would be a flight to catch, and Sir CP would be very, very worried. And she would say, oh, relax. The flight will not take off without us. You know, that kind of confidence that she would have. And I think she also, at the same time, as a wife, was very loving. And she took care of, you know, Sir CP's, shall we say, tight schedule that he used to maintain. And especially in the younger days, from what my mother used to tell me, that she used to be very particular that, you know, whatever were his schedules are not disturbed because of the family life. She would always say that, you know, the work that he's doing is important. So what she did in her initial days, the realization that what he's doing is important, that same thing got reciprocated in the later days. When Sir CP said that what Shri Mataji is doing is very, very important, so I should support her. So it was a relationship which was very, very reciprocal, and, you know, not the way it is in a business-like relationship, no, but that they equally sort of, you know, cared for each other. And it would be seen in very small gestures and very small things that Sir CP would do, or what Shri Mataji would do for him. And the way she would, you know, tell somebody, oh, it's time for him to have his medicine or whatever. I mean, these are things which you know, come from inside. They are not sort of a put on that you're caring for your husband or something like that. So I think they shared a wonderful relationship, and they had a long and happy married life. We attended their 50th wedding anniversary, and she was very happy. And so it was something which, you know, sort of reflected the kind of devotion that they had to each other.
On the other side, as the family, and when the public life started, it could be seen from the family side that there was a great imposition from all these people into your private life. Before you had a very intimate and loving family life, all of a sudden Shri Mataji becomes a public figure, and you have all these uninvited people all of a sudden sitting in the living room with their hands open, and so all the privacy is gone, and all these people are now imposing themselves into your life. How did the family feel about that? It mustn't have been an easy thing.
I think the family was used to interacting with a lot of people. So we had this family, which was the close, shall we say, relatives, the cousins and brothers and sisters and nephews and nieces and others, grandchildren, etc. But there was a larger family. And I think this came into our family from our grandfather's time. He used to maintain an open house. Anyone could come and talk to him and, you know, sort of be entertained, and also be, you know, receive the hospitality that my grandmother had to offer. And so when this started happening, that there are, you know, all kinds of people coming and sitting, and as you said, sitting with their hands and trying to receive the vibrations that you know, they were supposed to receive. It was not something which was very different. The other thing was Shri Mataji. She, you know, she always organized things in such a way that, it was not an imposition, that everyone was sort of taken along. I still remember some of the early meetings that she used to organize in Nagpur and other places. And all of us cousins would be involved. We would be picking up mattresses and laying them out and doing things, and it was great fun for us, and she would make it that way. And so it was not that, suddenly our privacy was taken away, no. As I said, in any case, we were not a very private family. We had huge number of, extended family, and also a lot of friends and others. And as I was telling you that, my grandfather was known to be equally and this was something that Shri Mataji also had. Equally comfortable with a rickshawala who pulls a rickshaw and earns his livelihood. Or a person who sells pan, the betel leaf that is there. And he could talk with ease with them, and he could talk with ease with Mahatma Gandhi or with Sardar Patel or Nehru and others who were national leaders. So I think this was something which was a part of the family heritage. And so we all of us, sort of imbibed that to a lesser or larger degree. And so we didn't sort of feel that, this is what is happening, and now that this person is not ours. No, she was like that. And so I think, she had this capacity to make everyone comfortable in all kinds of, shall we say, circumstances and environment. And so whether it was a puja that was taking place, and we were just part of the entire huge crowd which would gather for that, or whether it was when we were sitting down in smaller groups and talking to her and doing various things, we sort of didn't feel that there was a change taking place. It was all flowing, always something which was happening, and she would be quite okay with it.
I'm going to ask you a difficult question. Do you feel you've had a personal either revelation or miracle or spiritual experience personally between yourself and Shri Mataji in your life?
That is a difficult question, because you see, there have been occasions when you do feel that there is something which is happening, and she once we were having a conversation, and she said that what your problem is, you have read too much, okay, and so she said that unlearning that is very difficult for you. You find it very tough, which was absolutely right, by the way. When I look back, I realized that yes, perhaps if I was not that logical and where I was trying to seek answers more through the science that I had known, it would have been perhaps easier for me to relate to Sahaja Yoga at that point in time. But yes, there were moments when I did feel that there was something which was being communicated to me, and to a certain extent I think that did influence the way I grew up as a person and developed as a person.
Many people that have watched this video have never met Shri Mataji. All they know of Shri Mataji are the recorded talks and the more formal exchanges that they see, have records of. They have no perception of what it was like to be in the presence of Shri Mataji, what it felt like, the awe or the feeling of humility of being in the presence. So what can you share with people about, as a family member but also as a human being, what was it like to be in that presence and over such an extended period of time?
You see, one thing that was there was, I won't say it was awe, but it was definitely this feeling that this is one person who is capable of bringing around major changes and has qualities which are different. And I think the issue was also this, that as I said, that she was our aunt also. So occasionally we would have our own doubts that okay, is she really divine? Those kind of questions do arise. So that was something which was always there, but while we knew her as our aunt and as our Mosi and all that, we also realized that she is doing things which, you know, are not easily possible for a human being to do. And I think I mentioned to you that, you know, the kind of energy levels that she had always were amazing. I mean, and without, shall we say, becoming coy about it, she also was not somebody who was very light on her feet. And like all Salves, she was well built. Supposed to sap your energy. In her case, we never saw that happening. And almost right up to the end, it was amazing to see the kind of energy that she could, you know, bring around her work. And whether it was on occasion, once I accompanied her to, I don't remember the place that we went to, where she was looking for some land to, you know, develop an ashram or something like that. It was somewhere in Maharashtra. And, you know, she must have seen at least 10, 11 different places. And she didn't get tired. All of us who were following around got tired, and then finally she landed up at one place, and then she said, "This is it. This is where it has to be." And we didn't see what was there to be seen, but she said no. And I think, if I remember correctly, Baba Mama was with us. She said, "Baba, ite banao, that you make it here." And so those were occasions when, you know, you suddenly, you know, realize that there's something different happening here, that where she's seeing things which perhaps we have not been able to visualize. So those were interesting occasions. And I know that there are, within the family also, there are people who do feel that, you know, perhaps she was not all that divine that she is to the Sahaja Yogis. But I on my own has, as I told you, had these moments, you know, when she has been very lucid and very clear on the way life is supposed to be, the way we are supposed to move ahead. So, I mean, that's a tough question to answer, but yes.
In the same vein, as we're coming to the end of the interview, you must at times reflect on your life. You must reflect about your childhood and the family you're born into, and why fate would bring you into this family and give you this opportunity. And looking back at your life and opportunities that you had, how do you reflect upon your own personal circumstances and your relationship with, say, Shri Mataji and her family?
You see, there have been very important occasions when she has sort of influenced my decisions and the way things moved forward. And I mean, there was this you know, desire where we would sort of, when we were taking a particular decision, we would consult her, especially after my mother passed away, and also when after my father passed away. So those were decisions where she helped us along, guided us as to do this, and this is the time when you should be doing this, and, you know, things like that, very simple things. And sometimes you feel that, oh, this is something that I should have also realized, but we didn't. So that was something which, you know, will remain with us always. And I think the learning that we took away from her, and these are small things, was a continuous process that we sort of shall retain and cherish as long as we are alive. And I think when even growing up as a professional, as I told you, Sir CP was an inspiration in any case. But Shri Mataji also sort of had this. There was one aspect of hers which was very practical also. She could be very pragmatic, and, you know, sometimes she would say, you know, in this, she would say that, you know, you are getting emotional. She would say, don't do that. This is the way it's supposed to be, and so you must, you know, look at it this way. So those were things which, you know, help you in life also later on. So you start thinking, okay, I mean, there have been occasions, and this is something very personal, where I have thought, you know, as to what my mother would have told me. or what Shri Mataji would have told me, or what NKP Salve would do in such a situation, things like that. So these are people who definitely sort of have been beacons for us.
Coming to the end of the interview, is there anything that you would like to say that you haven't had a chance to say so far, that you would like to express for the future generations?
I think the only thing that I would like to say is that being able to realize what you are yourself, and understanding that I think this is one of the things that Shri Mataji in fact also mentioned, is that you are your own guru, provided you are able to understand and realize that, and that can make you really very strong. And what happens in life is that you pass through different situations. Sometimes it can be very tough. And when you remember these words, and when you remember how they faced difficulties in their life and became their own gurus, and sort of able to find a way out of all that, that becomes very inspiring. And so that's something they should carry forward. Because as we go forward into the future, you don't know what the future holds. It could become very, very tough. You could have all kinds of issues coming up in the world around you. But if this message we can understand that the kind of love that she gave to all of us, and the ability to realize what you are and achieve self-realization, and through that be able to manage your own life in a much better way, I think that can really be a big message for the younger generation.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Pleasure.